All right, hello. Well, we're here to interview Carolina about her life and what she's up to. So Carolina, let's just start with how's your morning so far?
My morning. Pretty good. I'm in Atlanta today, so I got up early and decided to drive home from camping out in the wilderness of Georgia.
Hmm,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, so it's going well.
Are you a nature person in general?
I am. I am. I've discovered more of a love for it as I get older. Just need more time outside of the city.
Hmm. Nice. So what is the goal of, okay, I know you do a lot of marketing work. You run a Facebook page. It's a kind of marketing group for, is it specifically for woo-woo people or what is the focus target market of your marketing group?
Okay, sure. Yeah, there's two elements of what I'm doing right now. What you and Julia are participating in, and what I started as a side is a community of individuals that are in what we call like conscious, woo, weird, um, spiritual, natured practices, interests in the world for business orders in that space to really collaborate. One thing that I saw missing, or is just my lens, obviously, of what I'm seeing, is the old natured way of advertising to reach one's audience, which is let me just share a link and hope somebody catches it on the other end. And that's pretty common practice because it's really easy, right? If you think about it, you're like, shit, I'll just drop a link. Boom, there it goes. And you're like, oh, I hope someone is really interested in it. And as I mentioned before, I feel like that really helps when you have already a captured audience and or the budget to grow that audience and find that audience. And when social media started to really take hold in the internet, it disrupted all of advertising because now brands were like, shit, I don't have control. I don't have access like I did before. Now people want to have more of a personal relationship with individuals that they don't want to be advertised, they don't want marketed to, they want to collaborate with you. And so what I saw was an opportunity for us, and that this is where my Aquarian mind comes in of like, I want to leverage the network effect, which is there is an audience that we all share. We don't always overlap. And by connecting with each other, by purposely, like intentionally, do work together to help lift and promote each other up is way more effective than dropping that link and hope that someone catches it. There is a value that is given when someone recommends someone else. The audience, the consumer is there like, oh, okay, so there's a validation that's happened here. Like the first layer of validation, and then they're curious, they want to explore more. But if you continue building that relationship with that other business person, it sales becomes so much faster and easier.
Hmm. Well, yeah, in sales theory, there's actually 7 steps to the sales cycle. The first one is prospecting, and then the second one is building rapport. And a lot of people skip that part of sales. They don't even understand that building rapport, basically building a friendship, is part of sales. Like, who do you buy from? You buy from the person who's your friend, actually. And they say you're not even supposed to sell something to somebody unless you've built a bridge first. So are you talking about basically helping people build rapport so that they can then buy
Yeah.
from each other?
Yeah, and it's also to be even tapped into audiences that you generally would never be able to, but yet are interested in what you're doing. I'll give you a perfect example. I have a coach. I started with a coach back in November, and as part of that coach, I have that experience. I have a group of other individuals that are doing the same thing I'm doing, which is building a business. But because there's this natural, like, hey, you and I are in this together, like, would you like to collaborate with me? It's opened up these opportunities for me to do so. And one of them that I reached out to is this woman who has a dragon art fan page. She's an AI artist. She's a graphic designer with 20 some years experience, who's been like, shit, look at this Mid-Journey stuff. I want to be on top of that. I want to do that. I want to leverage it. And so she has this love, passion for dragons and started a Facebook group for people to just like experience her art. She launched that 3 months ago. It went viral within a month. She had 6,000 people. She's now at almost 20,000 people in her Facebook group who throw money at her. Like, just, I want all the creations that you create. And so I reached out to her. I was like, hey, would you like to do something together? And she's like, yeah, I know there's people here interested in astrology, but I don't even know how to, like, how do we blend the two?
Mm,
Right? How do we find that connection? So I was like, no problemo.
mm,
ChatGPT knows all.
mhm,
So I gave ChatGPT a task. Dear Chatty, this is my audience. This is what I am. This is her audience. This is what she is. Give me like 5 ideas that I can run with. And one of them was how about coming up with dragon inspired zodiac art. So a dragon for each zodiac sign. And so I came up with a zodiac words, right? Like this is what Aries is like, here are the associations, the correspondences. And she took that as her art directive. She's talented enough to be able to do that. I've worked with enough designers that, I don't paint the picture for them, but I give them the mileposts. Like here's from here to here, Aries. From here to here, Gemini. And she created it. We launched it. I did a blog post and the audience went nuts. They're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Where's mine? Have you done mine? I want to know Leo. Oh my God, I always thought that would be Leo. Like, it was hilarious. And
mm,
through that, my email list tripled. My Facebook group, which is the consumer side. So you see the business people, collaborating. The consumer side tripled. It has its own Facebook group. And
mhm,
that was the intention was, hey, how can we offer something as a gift, as something as that can inspire them? And that's what I did through my blog post and through the art, and boom, they got something from us just collaborating.
mhm. Interesting.
So that's the sort
Okay.
of thing that I am talking about. That takes a little bit more than your normal thing, right? It is a little bit more lifting, but
Mm,
I'm also operating in the world of blogging. So I'm building content that will have a lifespan way longer than your Instagram post. And
mhm,
that's intentional. That's what I wanted to do with my business.
mhm. So forgive me if I'm missing something, but it's like I've been trying to figure out since you and I started working together what it is you're trying to monetize. Like I know you're building a lot of like crowd for yourself, but I can't figure out what your product is. So what is it that like how will you eventually leverage your customers? Like what can we get from you as a product or what is the because I know you say you don't want to do astrology readings, so I'm like what is it that people will
Yeah.
eventually get from
Yeah.
you?
And so aside from the business side, so that experiment on its own is really a market research effort, right? You guys tell me what you're missing and what you need. And that's what I learned in that group. It's what I get to see. And so if I want to do something with that in the future, I can. And in the meantime, what I built and what I'm building is a place for individuals that, and for the most part, are spiritually inclined women who are curious about astrology, but they're not going to go down the path of going to astrology school. I don't purport to be the one that's going to do the astrology readings. I think everybody should do astrology readings for themselves at some point, like as many as possible, get as many different experiences from them. But I want to teach them the basics. I want to teach them, like, here's what a sun sign means and how you can interpret it, and here's the wisdom within this very small little world that is actually really, really large, without getting so confused with all the jargon that gets thrown out there around the squares and the sextiles and the trines. Like, they don't care. They just want to understand like the basic, the true basic. And so when it's funny because I was just writing something that I was going to share in our the business group about the blog, because people are like, well, how do you monetize that? Well, that gets monetized over time with digital content, with affiliate marketing, with classes that I launch.
So that is astrology school, though. You're saying you're going to teach
Sure,
astrology.
but I'm not going to be like giving certifications by no means. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to be something that I do.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, is it an astrology reading you're giving them with the basics? Because it's like an astrology reading at its most basic is here's your sun, here's your moon, here's your rising. This is what a chart does. And that sounds like what you are offering actually is you want to do some basic astrological teaching to people.
Right. And so I have a workbook that gives them the basics of like, here are the signs, here's what each of the planets means, here's a plug and play. Go and explore your birth chart.
Mm-hmm.
It's me giving them those tools. It's not me saying like, your sun in Cancer means blah, 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 blah. I could do that at a very basic level, but they at some point, I would hope, learn those tools to then go deeper themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you could say that I'm teaching them astrology, but I'm not going down the path of like, you know, novice, intermediate, expert level. Like that's not my intention.
Mm-hmm. So if I was going to refer someone to you, though, it's like I guess I'm trying to get clarity for people who are watching as to like if when could we refer to you and like what would they be receiving? It's just at this point I'm not clear. I just want clarity for the viewers because that's why we're interviewing you today is to help them know what you do and like how to interface with you. So it's like is it that they just like you're basically just at this point for free talking to people, anyone who wants to talk to you, or is it that they set up a time to talk to you, or how does that work?
No, this is nothing is personal with me. You're never going to come to me and be like, Carolina, read my chart for me. Never. This is all blogging, digital content, digital courses that someone then logs in to receive. And you're literally seeing this, right, the first step of this many that need to happen.
So
I'm
they
at
would
the
they would
very
go to your
behind.
blog and purchase a course.
Right. Exactly. But that course has not been developed because I'm still in the work of the process of figuring out exactly how I'm going to do that and how much effort I'm going to put into that to build something that's viable, minimal viable product. And I started blogging like less than 6 months ago, and I have a significant goal of what I want to be writing to even get to the ranking that I want on Google. So I'm not in a hurry. I'm here to explore and discover what people are needing so that I can really be informed in my development.
Hmm. Yeah, in research and instruction, there's a model called the Addy model, which I don't know what all the. I think it's like assess, develop, instruct, educate, or something like that. But the first step in teaching is assessing what the students want or need. And I feel like you're in that stage of development of your curriculum is, assessing what your students would want. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah. And part of that is through, like, I get emails sometimes, like, which surprise me, like people responding to my emails, like, I have a question about blah, blah, blah. And the other stuff is through my Facebook group. When people submit, I ask them a direct question, what is it that you're seeking an answer for? And that helps me inform my content development.
Hmm. Okay. Julia, do you have any questions for Carolina so far?
So it sounds also to me like you have a workbook. I know you mentioned that you have one. Do you sell that as well, or is that just like,
No,
okay, so you don't
that's
sell the
my
workbook?
that's my lead magnet.
Oh, okay. So then I'm guessing you have an email list then? Like did you start one?
Yeah,
Okay.
I have an email list, I have a Facebook group, all the things. It's all working as planned, growing.
Okay. Okay. So for anybody watching this then, if so Carolina at the end, we'll have you put your
Sure.
email and everything in there too.
Sure. Mhm.
so that you can possibly like get that from her list too. Because as everyone knows, I'm an astrologer, but I don't offer workbooks, and I know you do. So, you know, that's another avenue. That's something I'm not going to offer at the moment, but that could be helpful for somebody else.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm. So then, Carolina, what is a specific goal of your marketing group on Facebook? I know it just seems altogether altruistic of just like you're letting everyone market all over your group, and I guess the goal of it is for you is what then?
Market research. I know it's really hard for people to understand this, but if you had my skills of 20, 30 years of digital marketing and you wanted to figure out like, what is it that your typical business in the spiritual woo realm, what are they really needing? Because I feel like I do, because I see it daily on the daily. But do I want to go after that or just a specific slice of it and then turn that into some sort of low cost membership? Or is it turn into like an actual coaching class? I don't know. I'm not in a hurry for that. That group is truly meant for individuals to do what I want it to do, which is find people to collaborate with and grow your business.
Mhm. Okay.
Go do that. So and I know that's really like anti-capitalism because people are like, wait a second, where's the catch? Right? And I'm like, God, there is no catch. Go do the thing. Go do the thing. I have many opinions on how you should do your business. Many. And I could literally spend all day doing that and sharing all that free advice. I don't have time for it. I have other things that I need to build, but that will come when I shift. I can't build two businesses at the same time. It's not possible, but I can use that place to both grow my own business as well as to understand what's needed in that market space.
Mhm.
I have a question, Andrea, if that's okay for her.
Yeah.
So something that came to my mind is you get questions like through email
Mhm.
and like, people do ask you questions. Do you ever use the questions that people ask you in a blog, like an answer in a blog post?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
gathering those right now, and so I use the questions and feedback I get goes into my next like, okay, how do I want to address this? One thing that I really do not like to talk about is love and relationships with astrology. That's just not something that I like to do.
Mhm.
And, and so I'll get something like that. And it's just not me. I'm not a love coach. You'll go find yourself someone to do that with. Um, but other stuff, it just goes right into like, okay, where do I tease that out? Or I keep getting this question, so obviously what I have hasn't answered it and I need to rethink it. But it goes into content development and assessing like, am I doing the job that I hope I'm doing?
So how does astrology fit in with your everyday life? Like what is your use of astrology?
Um, Nowadays I don't look so much at daily transits or anything like that. I look at it more from like the major planetary outer planet movements. I have things at basically at all the angles. So I, I inevitably feel like I'm walking around like, oh, I see this is shifted now. And this is going to change. Okay, so I don't really need that much insight. I kind of feel it out. So, um, I do look at my solar return. I'm very curious about that of where I should focus my time. I'll look at like annual perfections as well to see like, oh, okay. So it's more of like how to like focus my energies and where to um be less focused on others.
So how do you think astrology helps people in general?
And the list is endless. It goes from self-awareness to compassion to career guidance to relationship, faux pas, and to money, all spirituality, all of it can help you really figure out all those questions if you want.
Because I mean, your business eventually will be dealing with astrological content, right? It's like I know you're doing market research right now, I get that. But your larger goal is to make astrological content, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm not gonna have a blog post that's gonna say, here are the transits for 2024 and, blah, blah, blah. I'll cover at a high level, but I'm not doing the daily horoscope analysis. It's not my interest. I'm not interested in at all in any of that. I would hope that individuals take what I offer them of the basics of a framework of how they could look at the signs. For example, I did a Facebook Live last week with my audience, and I talked about the signs, looking at, like, can we just start with the basic glyphs? Like, what are the symbols and what can we gain from just looking at the glyphs? Just throw away like what your rational mind wants to say. What is it on the automatic response, your intuition say? And I feel like that's much more helpful than me telling them like, well, this is what your sun and this means, because that's not really giving them the tools to build that knowledge themselves. Like, it could help initially, but not long term,
Well, it's
especially if they're trying to understand their whole chart, which is the goal.
well,
Right.
okay. So as a teacher, it's like at the school where I work, the Moyer Press, we teach people at every single level of astrology, from people who are like, "What is it? What is a sign? I don't even know." We teach all the way up to people who are reading transits and then can read all their transits and aspects, and like we teach them remediation and we take them higher. And in education, there's something called the zone of proximal development, which is the zone at which people are developing. So all we do in 1 hour of class is pull people up one zone of proximal development. And what I think you're talking about is that you want to take people who are at the zone of development of like zero astrology and take them one zone of development of like, here's a glyph. You know what I mean? But it's like transits are helpful to people who are up in these zones of development. Like once they've learned what a glyph is and they know what the circle is and they know what their signs are, it's like now to talk to them about the glyphs might be redundant information. But what it sounds to me like your target market is these people who are kind of astro curious, perhaps, and you want to help them bust into astrology and see how helpful and awesome it can be. Is that kind of where you?
Yeah, I would say that that would be like step one. And I feel like they'll naturally move into step two, which would be, okay, now let's take this and let's look at your solar return.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
and I do see that happening. Absolutely. And I do have people in the community who are beyond just the sign, but they don't know all their signs. That's the other thing that I note, right? That I notice. I'm like, if you only know your sun and moon sign and your rising sign, that's great start. That's like 80%. You still got 20% to really understand your fullness, your true operation that you're here on this earth at this time.
yeah, it seems like your passion is like working with people who are astro curious, tapping into astrology. So that's one of the reasons I asked the question of like, how do you think astrology is helpful to a human? Because I feel like you're kind of, is it, would it feel awesome to you for you to teach those people why astrology is helpful? Like, is that an interesting topic for you?
Yeah. And I have a blog post that helps decipher that at very, very, at the skim level. But yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember like talking about like my own discovery of like getting into astrology and how all that came about, and I feel like just even sharing those stories will help people understand like there's ways of utilizing this information beyond just what most people like. If you go outside of the Facebook land and you go into like the Instagram meme land and the TikTok meme land and the YouTube meme land, there's a lot of misinformation and there's a lot of misunderstood things about astrology.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you want to work with the masses. Like, for example, my target market is people who already can read charts and transits. Isn't that crazy? Like, I like to teach astrologers who already can read transits. Like, now where do you go? Like, how can we tweak your philosophy? I mean, I do work with the noobs, but it's like my target market's like way up here. But it seems like your target market is like you love the people who are like know nothing, or like they're maybe kind of woo woo, but they kind of know nothing about astro. Is it? I feel like that's a passion for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yes.
and it's why I communicate with a lot of people around in my world. Like that is my mission. It's to like help you wake up.
Yeah, totally. You want to get people woke, man.
One transit at a time. Like I'll talk to them like they're like, yeah, and blah blah blah. And then we'll go down the transit timeline, right? Of going backwards in time. And
Oh,
once we go down that, then they look at me like, oh,
yeah. Isn't it okay? It's mind blowing to teach a noob even the concept of a transit. Like, even if you said to them, there are things called transits, they're like, whoa. You know what I mean? So it's like you're at that level of like simplicity, which is kind of beautiful, which is just like, do you know that there's a clock with 10 hands?
right.
Whoa.
Exactly.
So I love that because I think in astrology education, we need people like you to get people understanding enough to know what they wouldn't even need to know. You know what I mean? So I think it's a beautiful thing what you're doing. I guess we should ask how you learned astrology. I mean, you alluded to you getting into, but how did you get into it, and then how did you learn it?
It's interesting. I would love to hear your opinion because of my Pisces like rising situation. And like I went so hardcore on science most of my life. It wasn't until like my late 30s, early 40s, right before my Uranus opposition, where I started to really, break through authentically of like who I was, which was to show that I was like already really curious about anything that says don't go read, you know, all the occult stuff.
Mm. Well,
And
did it coincide at all with Neptune going through Pisces? Because I feel like
that
Neptune,
was, what year was that? 2008.
I don't know.
I mean, I can tell you with Neptune going through Pisces, it's done everything with um how did I describe it? Softening everything around me, everything, myself, my way of seeing things, becoming more and more compassionate, empathic, but dissolving of every fog. Oh my God, the fog, the lack of clarity, the lack of ambition.
Mm. Mm.
I'm so happy it's past my ascendant now. Like, thank God. Don't come back.
Julie, are you trying to say something?
I was thinking something. So that kind of transit can make it feel like it's a dreamy kind of transit, like you can do anything you want. It could feel like that with that kind of transit. But when you said that like it felt like clouds all over you, that's kind of where I was like, huh, okay. So I was wondering which way it went, either the clouds completely, or if you feel like, oh, I could do anything, but I'm not gonna really like make it concrete. I'm just gonna have
I mean,
a
I
dream.
I live in dreamland. That's the
Okay.
thing. I have my Neptune conjunct Jupiter. Like I
Mm,
live in dreamland and
mhm.
it's okay, but that it just got worse.
Mm. No, yeah, I get that.
So when I started with astrology, I feel like I've always been curious about my sign and I just didn't know like where to go beyond that. And so 2017, right as I was getting divorced, so that was when I was 45, I decided to learn officially, and I was like, I'm gonna sign up for class, and I think that's like right after like Jupiter went over my my own Jupiter. I think that's right around then, or going over my 10th house. I can't remember, but I I signed up for Portland School of Astrology, and that's where I met Andy and JP and Rhea, and yeah, that was my formal education,
So
and I loved it.
you formally learned astrology,
Yeah.
and you can do all the things an astrologer can do. You can read an ephemeris.
I can draw my own chart. I can look at all the glyphs. I know I prefer from teaching from learning from you guys. I prefer traditional astrology in terms of planet rulership. Um, I just feel like we don't know as living humans enough about the outer planets to say that they do one X, Y, Z, you know?
Mm.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah.
Julie, are you a traditional ruler or you do you use new rulers?
I believe it's more traditional. So, I know I told you I do the Placidus one.
Mhm.
I think that that's the one that isn't that the one that's more traditional. That's where I always get mixed up.
No, Placidus, no. I mean, most traditional astrologers use whole sign houses, but
I don't use whole sign houses, so interesting. Okay.
like traditional rulerships are like, do you use Jupiter for ruling Pisces or do you use Neptune?
I honestly don't look at that, so I can't really answer. I don't look at that on the chart. I honestly just look at all the houses and I look at where placements are. That's kind of how I learned to do it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and that to me is one of the things that I love talking about is the planetary rulership of things because it helps people understand their signs a little bit more.
Yeah. So that's a mind-blowing concept to the newbies. You could one day you could just be like, "Do you know that some planets rule a sign?" And they're like, "Oh my God." Like it's
We
funny what
do.
we assume is easy, but for the newbie, rulership is actually really tough. Like,
It is.
how can you rule it and what, and it's like the ancients would actually say that a planet is at home in a sign. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what the Greek would say. Like I mean, I've translated these ancient Greek books, and it's like when you're reading rulership, it's like Mars is at home in Aries, and
Mm-hmm.
Mars is at home in Scorpio. Like that's what rulership actually kind of means. But this whole idea that it rules it is kind of like, it's super esoteric, honestly.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I talk about that on my stuff. Like I posted about Venus being in Taurus this week, and I also posted about Mars being in Aries. So, they're at home in those signs. So I did post that already. And I did talk about how it's like at home. Like, Venus is at home in Taurus. Venus is also at home in Libra, but that's not a transit happening right now.
Right.
So I tend to post that stuff because that stuff, interests me, and that's the stuff that I love. But anyway, going
Yeah.
back to
Well,
what
yeah,
you were
so
saying.
you do get rulership, but yeah,
A
it's
little bit, but
what's
not a
cool
lot.
about Carolina is like she knows rulership, she knows transit, she knows all the things that the people up here teaching in astrology know, but and her passion is with the people down on the and
It
like on the
is.
Hmm.
ground.
I
Exactly.
want to give them the little like you don't have to deal with this pain and suffering if you could just see like these times will pass
I,
or just
I,
even
yeah.
to deal with others in life. Like to me, it's given me such a great tool set of okay, I know my chart really well, but I know how hard it is to navigate it. Like I'm full of squares, T
Mm,
squares, oppositions, like there's a lot of grind.
no, I
But
get that.
there's a lot of fruit that comes out of it too. Um,
But
but
you're saying that it helps you understand other people too,
it
which is
does.
one of
It
the big
really
gifts of
does.
astrology. Yeah.
And it
It
also helps
does.
me to teach them of like, well, if you're so unique in your expression, just imagine someone else.
Mm. Julia, were you gonna say something?
No, I was actually thinking of something. Are you Pisces rising? Is that what you said, Carolina?
Mhm.
Okay. For some reason I thought you were Gemini rising because I know we talked before, and so I don't know why I got that in my head.
I
But
have I have Venus and Gemini conjunct my IC.
that might be why. Okay. But I was mentioning it because the way that you come across to people that might be interested in what you're doing is literally like, you don't have to learn all this. Like, let's go, like, let's take baby steps. But that's such like a Pisces rising. They're viewing you as like, oh, she's so empathetic to the fact that I don't want to learn all this. She's so understanding of this. That's how they're perceiving you. So that makes sense as to why you wanted to do it that way to me. But I don't know what your 10th house is in or anything. Like I forget if you told me, but I don't know the 10th or 6th or
Yeah,
second
yeah.
house. So
I'm a Sag, midheaven. Um,
oh, okay.
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Interesting.
why Jupiter and Neptune are so interesting in my life. Um,
Well, I think the school's gonna like at least my school would love having you around because it's like I don't actually have time to work with people at that baby level. I mean, no, it's just you have to focus somewhere, and it's like when it's not that I'm not passionate about working with them. It's just I'm so busy with the advanced astrologers that
They're
it.
the way I see it is like they're like I think I talked to you guys before about this in my mind. Like the pie is so large. The pie
Mm,
is an infinite energy. There's never a lack. It's never reduced. If anything, it gets larger, right? And there's a person for everyone. And
mm,
so what I've noticed and the feedback that people give me is like there's something about my voice. There's something about how I explain things to people that they can understand. And my empathic nature really helps that. And I had that even when I mean, my son is in the fifth house. I was a consultant for over 20 some years. That's what I did. I consulted people on their problems and I listened. My moon is in Libra. So that was what I did. And I had such a great time doing that, of guiding them, of nurturing them like down this path. No, how about this one? Or how about this one? So yeah, it's just the beginning of what I'm of developing here. I think what Andy is catching is like, don't be shy of what you're doing. I
Yeah.
get, yeah, and I
Well,
appreciate that, and I love you for it. That's why your Scorpio energy is like, tell it, sister.
yeah. Well, it's like think about it. It's like we compared astrology to women's studies or anthropology or mathematics. It's like you're the person who like maybe you like to take the people who hate math and are afraid of math, and you're like, oh, but math is awesome, like you're kind of like that person in astrology. You're like, astrology is awesome. Come on, like don't be afraid, like or something. I think, or in women's studies, you might be the person who takes them through their first idea of anti-patriarchy or something. Like it's like it's like we in a field that like you need the intro math teachers and then you need the calculus teachers, and like all of those are valid steps. And didactics and pedagogy, it's the style at which you unwrap the package that you're of information. So it's like what I hear from that side of things is you want to unwrap the package with a workbook or a blog or a little course that they subscribe to. You don't want to unwrap it one reading at a time. You want to unwrap it in one lesson at a time. So that's just interesting to learn about your didactics is like what the style at which but you are kind of an astrology teacher a little bit,
Yeah,
like
yeah. I don't, but
you are.
also pretend to be Andy. you know I don't pretend
well.
to be at someone at your level. Like here's where I feel like I would be so successful. Like, yeah, I accomplished this the moment that someone has been like, Carolina, thank you so much for what you have shown me. I feel like I have like a great grasp on this. I want to be an astrologer. I'd be like, go to see Andy.
Well,
Mm,
interesting. Well, I think from a teaching perspective, there are good teachers at all levels of mathematics. You can have one of your best math teachers can be the one who teaches you arithmetic. 1 + 1 = 2. If they're a good teacher, a good person, a good human, that is a brilliant teacher, right? It doesn't matter if you teach advanced or you teach basic mathematics, like teaching itself is a service. It's a service leadership position in life, basically. So I think what you're doing is highly valuable. Are you kidding? Like, it's just different parts of the system, you
It is.
know?
It is.
yes.
Yep.
Same. I think what you're doing is valuable too, because if it was me, they have to actually like, it has to be a little bit more than, my target market is a little bit more advanced than yours, I feel like.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
a little bit
And I
more.
also, like I said before, like I've had many readings. Like I've had friends who are astrologers do a reading for me and then I've paid for readings. And there there's never a limit as to the readings we should have in life. They're so helpful to have somebody else look at your shit. That's why we go to therapists. Like talking to ourselves can only go so far.
Yeah, yeah.
You
I
need
think
a mirror.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's like that would be like saying like I only watched one movie about women's rights in my whole life. It's like in women's studies, it's like we can watch 20 movies about women's rights throughout our life, and each of them can benefit us. You know, it's like each astrological reading. I don't know, I see astrology a lot like a study like women's studies or anthropology or philosophy. It's like we study philosophy our whole lives, you know, or not, you know, or math, or we use math our whole lives, you know. But okay, let's ask you this. What are your short-term goals for what you're doing?
So my short-term goals will be, and I'm not sure whether this could be done by the end of the year. It's for me to launch the membership that I was speaking about, where there are courses that individuals can purchase and go down the DIY path. Um,
Okay.
and to start launching more intentional circles, online circles with individuals. Those will likely be collaborative with others so that we make them a little bit more interesting than just focusing on one subject. And
Mm,
I have a lot of ideas about that, but my squirrel brain would like to do all the things.
mm-hmm. Okay. And then, well, then what are your long-term goals?
My long-term goals with this particular business is to have it be running pretty smoothly on its own. um, as I figure out how to monetize my next business and so on and so forth. I don't see myself just doing one thing. The more I lean into like my Gemini nature being in the fourth, I should have multiple businesses from home.
I see.
Yeah.
So your larger goal is to work from home full time, running
For
your own,
me, for me to be, yeah, to be independently from a physical location.
so you can kind of work from wherever.
Wherever yeah, exactly. And, you know, I feel like I've like earned it. I spent 20 some years like being having to be in a physical location of a job. And I get it because I worked with teams and creatives and clients, and but so much of that, I mean, gosh, the last couple years just pushed it over the edge with video conferencing and no one ever leaving their houses. And now we're seeing, commercial real estate tanking. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're seeing the beginning of something much, much, much larger here.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So wait, what are your other businesses that you want to start?
Well, the second one will be the business group that you're in with Julia. So once I figure out what's really needed there, business consulting, products, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Then I'll figure out something there.
Hmm.
I may also write another blog focused on being an expat because that's what I'm going to be doing,
Hmm.
and helping people navigate how to expat into Mexico.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What do you have in Aquarius?
My Mars and my North Node.
Yeah, that's what it is because like you're such a super online networker and marketer and like just working online as much as you are in this kind of blogging way that's so Aquarian to me, and that's that Mars North Node. So it's like I know you're all these other things, but that Mars North Node in you is so strong. Like it's like you're like it's so burly, you know what I mean? Like it's doing all this networking.
Well, it's
Um,
trine Venus. It's like perfectly trine.
oh,
Yeah.
what
Oh,
degree is it at?
This is where all the interesting numbers come. Like Julia, I want to know, 22. Everything's either 21, Mars is at 21 some seconds, Venus at 22, my IC at 22. I have then all my angles are all at 22.
So Jupiter and Gemini is going to stop at retro like, and go retrograde, I think around 22 degrees. So it'll be right on that Venus. Okay, let me get out my ephemeris. Okay, hold on.
And I'm,
this is where we geek
and
out.
here I am. I'm like, I'm looking to sell my house. I'm looking to buy a house. Like it's all coming in.
Oh my
It's
God,
all
it
nuts.
stops in October of 24. It stops at Jupiter's at 21, stopped there for several months. It's just, and it's going to be down in your fourth there on your Venus. I'm sorry for anyone who's watching who's not up here in their level of development in astrology. That's fine. You can
Yes.
someday aspire to geek out on this table of planetary.
It's so beautiful. I love it. What am I going to win the lottery? Oh,
Well, I do know from a marketing perspective, it's like when you look at like planning for your short-term or long-term goals, I mean, I would look at September, October, November as a huge push, just because Jupiter's sitting on that Venus trine Mars. It's like a
Hmm.
huge push for your goals.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also have Venus square Pluto. So
Wow.
yeah, and
Okay.
Jupiter is at a wide angle, but it still applies to my Mars, Jupiter and Scorpio.
You got all these. Okay.
I'm telling you, man, when they were like, let's go with the fun ones, boom. And then how about this one? Boom.
Wait, so you're
Oh
Pluto's
boy.
in Virgo?
I have Pluto in Virgo.
Is it conjunct Uranus?
It's conjunct my descendant.
Oh, okay, interesting. Well, that would give you a lot of focus. So I think, squares are juicy, and I think that the end of this year is going to carry you forward. I'm going to be standing next to you on that transit. I'll be like, I'm going to hang out with Carolina because Jupiter's at 2021, and my chart will be inert, but I know her chart will be working. No, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
With those transits, I always like mention they help you grow. Like I try to make it into like, don't be scared of it. Like, don't be scared of it. Use it to help you grow because it does help you evolve. That's kind of, and that's why, I figured to say it now because that's like a perfect time period to say that in this video. So
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
Julia, you might study teleology, the ancient growth theory upon which astrology was invented. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
no, it's
Yeah.
okay.
I feel
It's
that.
fine.
I feel like, and I think Andrea, when we last did one of your classes, the Jupiter classes, I feel Jupiter a lot in my life. I have Ganesha
Mhm.
tattooed on my life. On my leg. I got that done as Jupiter was transiting and making a big transit in my chart. And I didn't know like these
Wow.
things until later. I know.
Intuitive. You must have just known
It's
intuitively to do it.
it's the weird, yeah, and things like that happen a lot. I have Jupiter opposite Saturn, so I have this like, yes, I can do anything, anytime, anywhere, bring it. And then Saturn's like, wait a second,
Yeah, it makes you slow down.
not so
Wait, what
fast.
degree is your Saturn?
At 1 degree is Gemini.
Interesting. My director of admissions is the same generation as you. His Saturn's at 5 gems, so he's like must have been born a few months after you. But like, yeah, I love that Jupiter Neptune conjunction. Like, talk about visioners. It's like I would like to work with a visionary, and it's going to be Carolina. Okay, so let me ask you this crazy question. Now, don't get offended by my question. Okay, I want the
Okay.
crowd to know. Okay, how does God inform your process, if at all?
Mm. Okay. I love that question, actually. I would have rejected that as my Aquarian nature in the past. This is where that Pisces nature of mine has really blossomed over the years, and I've become more and more attuned with my connection with my own God, my own divinity. You can call it whatever it is. So I everything now is very much, whether it's me sensing the words of what I need to be doing or I am actively pushing in those directions of what divine connection brings. Like I feel very connected, and that's probably the Neptune going through. Um but it's also been through a lot of my plant medicine healing with ayahuasca, and I've like, yeah, I'm here having an experience and I've done it before. So for me, it's to help people understand that if they're open to it, they want to have the conversation. Like, this is a map that I chose for myself, my chart, my time, my parents, everybody. The people
Mhm.
that stick around or that I have interactions with, that's planned, it's happened, it'll happen again. Yeah, yeah, and I very much walk that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, because I really feel that people who are visionaries and create things out of nothing, like having the universe source creator, having that connection can help you, because it's like the creator is working through you on your creation in some ways. You know what I mean? Like, anything that we are manifesting from nothing is like it's like, where is that coming from? You know, it's like, I'm just saying, like, you were created in some ways to create what you're creating. You know what I mean? And so
Yes,
it's like,
yes,
it's cool to walk
yes,
with God on that path, you know?
absolutely. And it's helped me so much, when I started studying with you guys, I looked at the T square that's in my chart with Chiron and Uranus and my sun and my moon. I have Chiron opposite Uranus, which many of us have.
Mm,
Um, and at 32, when I was pregnant, I had a loss of a child, like
mhm,
unexpected delivery, unexpected death. That's the moon Uranus in my eighth. And later, I didn't understand what was happening in my life. I just knew that at those moments, I was very unhappy with God.
mm.
I was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck, dude?
I think
And then I realized through a lot of my own healing that I wasn't meant to walk that path. I was meant to be a mother for others
Mm,
and to be a mother for community, for my friends, for my family. That was meant. That's more in mind with me, and for me to have my own time to be my individual self, because I wouldn't be able to do what I do today or what I did 20 years if I had another person that I had to take care of.
mhm. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, well, I have one other question, Julie. Julie, do you have anything else?
Um, I don't, other than I think it's not a question, it's just a statement. Anybody would be upset about losing a kid. So I understand. Like that you don't you know, it's a thing. Anybody would feel upset about that. So I get where you're coming from.
Wow. Okay. Well, the last question I have for you is what action step or what do you want from the crowd who's watching this? Is there an action step that we can ask them to take to work with you, or, how do you want people to work or take action after seeing you?
Two things. They can reach me on my Facebook group and get oriented there if they would like. That's probably like the most less requirement of people. And that's questmystic.com/Facebook, and it will take you where you need to go.
Is that QUEST?
Yes, the
Okay.
Quest Mystic. Yes, .com.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be the main thing, come and just ask questions. If you sign up through the Facebook group, you'll be given the opportunity to give me your email address, and I'll send you the workbook for you to start with your birth chart analysis. And yeah, little by little, I guess my main thing for people is to just realize that you're more than just what people think you are. Like, I think I remember the class you and I had, Andy, where talked about how some folks don't identify with their sun sign,
Mm.
and I'm like, that's because there's so much more.
Yeah.
There really is.
That's a great concept for your noobs. It's like there's more than the sun sign.
There's
They're
so much more.
mind blown.
So much.
So much
Yeah.
Yes.
more. And yeah, I hope that helps people to understand that you are more than just one thing, and I'm here to help you navigate that.
Wow. Well, I can't wait to filter all the noobs to you.
Please do. I
Gosh, learning astrology is as hard as learning Magic the Gathering. Have you ever tried to learn that game?
No, is it as hard as Mahjong?
Oh, I don't know. I've never played Mahjong, but like, yeah. I mean, yeah, it takes like 20 astrology teachers in the course of one person's life. So I'm so glad you're around for the newbies because now I know where to filter them to.
Thank you, and I appreciate your questions and trying to nail me down on saying, yes, I am your newbie astrology teacher. Thank you very much.
Gotcha.
There you go.
I love your inner investigator. I would like to sign up for your PI, whenever you start that firm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Let you borrow my Mercury and Scorpio someday.
Yes, please. My Mercury and Cancer just to like pretty things and eat things and talk about food and
Right.
Oh boy.
Right.
Okay.
thank you, Julia. Thank you, Andy. I'm gonna stop the recording.